Hello and welcome to Sports Room. I'm Anirudh Madhavan and with me is veteran journalist Ayaz Memon. On today's episode, we'll talk about the recently concluded India-Afghanistan T20 series, the first test between Australia and West Indies, and of course the upcoming India and England home series, test series. So Ayaz, we'll start off with the Afghanistan series.
Yeah.
India took the three-match series 3-0, but the last match went to a double super over and we saw a mad innings from Rohit Sharma and we also saw aggression from Virat Kohli that was different to his playing style. And we also saw some good performances from the likes of Shivam Dube and Yashasvi Jaiswal and Rinku Singh, of course. So, what were the key takeaways for you?
I mean, look, one is, of course, what we discussed the last time. There was so much brouhaha about Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, whether they should be, they still find a place in the India T20 team. I think in this series, it's been, my argument last time was also, how can you not consider them? I mean, it would be not just ridiculous, but it would be it would be a travesty. And then it showed up. I mean, Rohit got 2 ducks in the first 2 matches. He didn't get the scoreboard going at all. Then he came up with that magnificent 100, which actually ensured India's win. And Virat got a first ball duck in the last match, but he got the best fielder of the award of the series award. He's been, I think, it's not just the quantity of runs that Rohit has made or Virat showing good form. I think the kind of value they bring to the team is through their depth of experience and their caliber, understanding of game situation. Even in I know it became a contentious decision by Rohit to retire himself and then get somebody fresher into the when the super overs were being played out. That's a lacuna which the ICC has to fix in the rule. But I think smart thinking, even in the 2-3 balls he faced in the super over to get a 6 and a 4 and get the scoreboard going, I think these are things that you don't get easily. It's not available off the shelf. So I think that in my opinion, Rohit and Virat, I still maintain they stand, as certain selections. And then, of course, you've got Yashasvi Jaiswal, Rinku Singh, Arshdeep Singh, I mentioned last time. Shivam Dube is striving, pushing hard for the place in the order in the team. And the value that he brings is that, and especially because Hardik is still not fit, he can bowl a bit and then he bats. He's a left-hander. He's shown a lot of improvement in the batting. So possibly an inclusion in the squad, but it's too early to say. I think a lot will depend on how all these players perform in the IPL.
Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about the first test between Australia and West Indies. So Australia, as expected, won easily, and we saw the novelty of Steve Smith as opener. But the real story of the match was this young man, Shamar Joseph, who took a 5 run debut. So till a few years back, this guy was chopping wood in a village in the back of the beyond of Guyana, and now on his test debut, and he has only had five first-class matches before this, and he picks up Steve Smith off his first ball. So uh, like we were saying that this was not expected to be a nail-biting series, but it's stories like these that really ignite a fan base, right?
Oh, absolutely! What a remarkable story. And we are flooded with stories every IPL season about some young player or the other, and they come from the boondocks or from interior India or tier 3 cities or the rural areas, and how they come good in the IPL. And this is a similar story, and perhaps in that sense a little more important in the context of West Indies cricket and Test cricket, because you need such talent to come. Certainly, West Indies need such players to come in and revive interest in the 5-day format in back home in the Caribbean, which is struggling for survival in many ways. So, and it's also, I think, a pointer that, look, this West Indies team was beaten in under 3 days. So there's no comparison between Australia and the West Indies in this series. But if you have 2-3 players like Shamar Joseph, then it becomes more competitive, and that is what we need. International cricket needs not just 2-3 players, maybe a team of competitive West Indies players who value red ball cricket or the 5-day format and come and give it their all. Now these are vexing issues. Obviously, the T20 leagues are a big seduction; they're a big attraction, and who's to deny them their right to livelihood? So that is obviously a challenge that the ICC and the respective boards have to face. But just looking at first ball dismissal of Steve Smith, who's arguably the greatest batsman of this generation, is 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 an eye opener in many ways as to what talent still exists. And let's not discount also. We talked about India versus Afghanistan, that Afghanistan may have lost 0-3, but they were at least, certainly the last match, I thought, you know, natural justice should have given them a win in that match for the way they fought back to even draw level, and get into the super over. Took a terrific effort, and throughout that series, without Rashid Khan, their linchpin, the main guy in their team, they put up a sterling show. So there is a lot of cricketing talent which is there in these countries. I won't write off West Indies. I think they need to focus a little more on getting some high quality test players going again, laying emphasis. A lot of that happens with, you know enlightened administration, senior players assigning value to red ball cricket, and so on. And then, of course, the other teams like Afghanistan, Scotland, Ireland, who they've all shown in limited overs cricket that they have the talent to beat or trouble the best. So yeah, so I think, look, we're looking ahead to a very challenging T20. Remember, we've been talking about who should be in the Indian team or not, but let's not take the other teams lightly, because there's an abundance of T20 talent which is now floating around in the globe.
Yeah. And talking of talent and inspiring stories like that of Shamar Joseph, let's talk about one in our own backyard. So, till a few months ago, Sumit Nagal put up a post saying that he had 80,000 rupees in his bank account.
Yeah.
And he was finding it difficult to fund his travel, his coaching, and training. But now he's become the first Indian since Ramesh Krishnan in 1989 to defeat a seeded player at a Grand Slam. And he did that at the Australian Open. Now, with his efforts, he now walks away with a guaranteed prize of around a crore. But the question, however heartening that effort might be, the question is really about the system, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In many ways, when you look back now in hindsight, it's a shocker that he had only 80K in his bank account. That's something that would prevent anybody from even leaving their home. Forget about going and trying to play tennis. So if you have that, your fund resources are so meager, then to have that enthusiasm and the motivation and the grit to go out and play and then beat a seeded player, I think it speaks volumes of Sumit Nagal's, ambition, and of course his drive. So I remember during the Asian Games, and then even the Olympics last year, and then whenever we've been together on these shows, speaking to Somdev Dev Burman about tennis talent in India, and he always used to talk very highly of Sumit Nagal, and also talk about how he was in a bit of a bind struggle. Nobody knew the extent of the struggle. Perhaps Som did, and perhaps he didn't. I don't know. But he did mention that this guy, if he gets the support from the system, and if he's got his mind uncluttered, not weighed down by worries, then he can move ahead in the sport. So I think that's coming true. And the question really is, and this is what you asked me about, what does it say about the system? I want to know how many Sumit Nagals are already there in the system. Right now, the Indian tennis scene is rather barren, isn't it? There's not too many players in the men's or the women's section making waves. So there's some hard work that is now incumbent on the tennis federation, and whoever else, are from the sports ministry also, perhaps, to look for talent like Sumit Nagal, which can take Indian tennis further.
Yeah. So, lastly, we should talk about the upcoming India England series at home, Test series at home, 5 match series. So, the whole lead up to this series has been about Bazball and whether it will work on Indian pitches against Ashwin or Jadeja. So, my question is, will it?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. All I can say is, I think on the face of it right now, it promises to be an enthralling series. I say that because, remember, England went to Pakistan and beat Pakistan 3-0. Last year, I think, about a year back, a little more than a year back. So, and they prepared very well, and they took the high risks against Pakistan, declaring, as Ben Stokes has done so often. One match I think they almost didn't win, but they won all three finally. So that's a tremendous record to come to the subcontinent with, to beat Pakistan. Pakistan, not the finest team currently. They've been under a lot of pressure for the last couple of years, but even so, to adjust and adapt to these subcontinent conditions is a big thing. And I think right now, before the England team comes here, they've been preparing, for this hugely challenging 5 Test series against India. They're coming with 4 spinners. They're from whatever reports are emerging from their camp, so to speak. Already there's talk of the fast bowlers being used very sparingly, like Jimmy Anderson, who's also here. and more focus on the spin. But really, the test for them will be how their batsmen cope with Indian spinners. You know, let's not forget also, having said all that, this is all in the realm of speculation, that in 2013, when England came here under Alistair Cook, they lost the first test massively, massive defeat at Ahmedabad, went on to win the series because Graham Swan and Monty Panesar got the better of the Indian batting. And if I go back even further in time, Anirudh, you might or might not, maybe your career hadn't begun then as a journalist. 84, 85, David Gower's team, they lost at Bombay and then very massively. L. Sivaramakrishnan taking 12 wickets, but they went on to win the series. And the bowlers then were Pat Pocock and Phil Edmonds, the spinners. And they, I mean, apart from Neil Foster, who got a lot of wickets. So don't discount this English team, but it'll be, I think it should be a riveting contest. The last time they were here under Joe Root, they won the first test, lost the next two. So there have been some very good exchanges between India and England, even on Indian condition or on Indian soil. And of course, India have a point to prove because the last match they played, these two teams met, they lost in England. So you have to exact some revenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and hopefully they will. And we'll bring more on that series in the coming weeks. Next week we'll be. I think the first match would have started by the time we record the next series. So we'll keep you updated on that. And that's it for this episode of Sports Room. See you next week.
Thanks, Andrew. Cheers.